Support for Live in 225 is provided in part by the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. For more information or to support the center, please visit organic.calpoly.edu. That's organic.calpoly.edu for the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. Support for Live in 225 is provided in part by AgCom Central. Visit AgCom Central on twitch.tv/AgCom Central or on our website, agcomcentral.com, where you can follow our social media. That's twitch.tv/AGCOMM Central for AgCom Central. Support for Live in 225 is provided in part by the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication at Cal Poly. Visit aged.calpoly.edu to register for our programs or to show your support. That's aged.calpoly.edu for the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication at Cal Poly.
Good morning, everyone, and we sit here live in 225. This is Season 1, Episode 8, about our discussion of the organic agriculture industry. And today we're going to be discussing all of the latest news about organic agriculture and trends in the organic industry. We are joined here today with Amy Walker, who is on the production team for this episode. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
We are here with Dr. Grisham, who is the lead guy for the Grimm Family Center for Organic Research and Production at Cal Poly. Good morning.
Yep. Thank you. Good morning.
We have our fearless leader, Dr. Mike, who is sitting on the podcast today with a very special guest, Nala the puppy.
Nala the puppy, and this is important because we're talking about organic dog food at some point, and now she's just laying here, and I'm gonna just pet her all episode.
And we have Tegan, who is Nala's wonderful, lovely mom, dog mom. And yeah, so we have a really fun podcast lined up today, talking about all of the new things that are happening in organic agriculture. And the first thing that I kind of wanted to start the discussion with is the new regulations of organic food that's going to be taking place in March. So, Dr. Grisham, if you'd want to talk a little bit about what you know about the regulations and kind of how this is important for the organic ag industry.
So what this is the USDA, responding to public comment, has released a new policy called the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Act. So this isn't something that, the consumers listening to this or the eaters listening to this are probably going to have a direct exposure to. And in fact, most of the rules are not going to affect farmers so much. What has happened is in recent years, there have been several high-profile cases of organic fraud. Many of these are from international products that are certified outside the United States and then come in, and then when organic regulators test them, it's like, oh, look, there's a synthetic fungicide on this. We have to send it back. But there was a very large grain fraud. There was a large Midwestern grain producer who was selling conventional grain as organic. So in response to this, the USDA has started some new policies. So the biggest aspect of this is it's really going to standardize some of the paperwork for the supply chain certification. So basically, as an organic product, say, gets sold from the farmer to a primary processor, to a secondary processor, and then to the point of sale, there's going to be a standard set of forms. Up to this point, that's been managed by the individual organic certification agencies, like CCOF, one of the sort of collaborators on this podcast series. And that's great because, as you might imagine, it's much easier to track paperwork if it's all the same form versus hundreds of different versions of the same form. And that has led to, some thoughts about, possibility of fraud. The other big change in it is right now, so in our food system, it's a very complicated, nuanced thing. There's a lot of moving parts, and one of the more interesting moving parts are brokers. And food brokers are interesting in that they don't maintain warehouse space. They basically serve as intermediaries connecting two links in the supply chain. And up to this point, they have not been required to maintain certification records. And this is one of the things that allowed some of the fraud incidences over the last couple decades, because basically, these folks could sort of take ownership of a product in another warehouse, and then suddenly it's organic. And there wasn't immediate recourse for them. There wasn't an immediate recourse for the certifiers to sort of keep tabs on that. So that's really the other big shift in that policy. The policies aren't actually going into effect for another year, and there's really a mad scramble right now in the certification world to kind of adapt to this. But all in all, while it's going to, the brokers in particular, I think, are unhappy about this. All in all, I think it's being recognized as a really good move on the USDA's part, and it should really help us protect the integrity of the organic label.
Yeah, it's just ensuring that the food that you buy in the stores is organic.
You're getting what you pay for.
Yeah.
And that's critical for organic certification to work.
And would you say that the biggest impact that it would have would be on those brokers that you were talking about before, just kind of standardizing what the paperwork that they have to fill out?
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be for the really egregious fraud that sometimes happen. And the organic industry, like every other industry, there's fraud. There's people who do, not
why would
good
you
things.
would you say that the biggest incentive for an organic company to commit fraud would be to cut costs and just make better profit off of the idea
No,
of
that's
organic?
it exactly. So, as I think most people recognize, organic produce usually, or products, even if it's grain or processed food, there's a premium associated with it. There's also, a marketing issue where even in some cases, organic products aren't much or even more expensive than their conventional counterparts. But there's the whole point of the certification is to allow consumers to make this choice. And so there's market access issues, and then there's also just the price premium. And so if someone can take a cheaper, say, let's just pick on grain, because that's been the biggest area of fraud within the United States. If they can take a more cheaply produced, lower cost conventional grain and then fraudulently claim it's organic, there's a margin there. And one of the reasons why I think grain has been one of the places where we've seen this is it's a mass commodity, and it's not one that is very visible to the consumer. Most of it is fed to animals, and there's organic animal ag is always sort of hurting for organic supply chain on grain. So there's a really For folks who aren't very ethical, I think there has been a pretty big incentive to cheat. And so the great thing is that these regulations, one, by forcing every step of the organic supply chain to go under a certification process, it's going to allow more oversight by the certification agencies and ultimately the National Organic Program. But then the standardization of forms, honestly, is also a really big one. And from talking to folks, my contacts and network in the organic industry, I think it's the broker piece is probably on the grain side. That's where it's going to have an impact. Mm-hmm. The standardization of forms is probably more in the international arena, because again, there's all kinds of certification agencies. If you're growing produce in Central America, for instance, you may or may not be working with initially a U.S.-based certifier. Mm-hmm. And so everybody tracks things differently. And so you end up with a lot of confusion in that process. And things can kind of, in that case, I think oftentimes it's things slip through the cracks. It may not be so much, malfeasance or out and out fraud. Yeah. But it's a really, I think from a producer standpoint, that harmonization of forms has the bigger, pain in the butt factor, because it means a change. However, I'm pretty confident that within 2 or 3 years, it's actually going to increase. It's going to make things more efficient. It's going to make it easier for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because again, if there's one set of forms that are very much aligned with the regulation, then it's just easier, right? I mean, it's kind of like, well, I don't like using tax as an example because doing your taxes is horribly complicated. But imagine, it's like if you like right now, I just moved from another state and I've got 2 sets of state taxes to fill, and it's kind of a nightmare because they're all they're just different enough to make it fun.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just if you're doing the same tax form every year, it becomes fairly humdrum. You got a pattern to follow. But that's a really big piece of news.
Yeah, and it's something that hasn't happened before in the organic industry, from what I can tell. So this is a big deal for all parties involved in the organic industry.
Well, and it's I think one of the things that is really built into the National Organic Program at all levels is it's not like it's not like there's a standard and it's static. Mm-hmm. The standard is hopefully always improving on the production side in terms of improving or reducing the environmental impact of organic production, but also in terms of improving our ability to, make sure that that there's integrity in the label and that people can trust the label. So this is really, it's a big change in some of these policies. Again, it's not something that consumers are really going to see. Ultimately, it will probably help increase the organic supply chain because it's going to harmonize things and make things just a little more easy to do.
Exactly, and I think that from an AgCom standpoint, having more trust in the organic label and educating consumers about that and ensuring them that the food that they buy is organic is just a win-win in terms of the industry, because you have more consumer support backed up, the producers are all standardized, everything is legit. Yeah. I think it'll be really exciting, and it'll be really promising moving forward.
Well, I think what you just said there is really important. I mean, with the organic label, the consumers are absolutely, they suffer a loss if due to fraud, but the growers actually following the regulations really suffer because you end up with an artificially inflated supply, which is going to reduce price, which for consumers that might seem like an okay thing, but if you're not getting what you pay for, it's not a good thing, right? But it makes it harder for the growers because, if suddenly, my product is competing in a marketplace where there's fraudulent products that don't actually follow the standard, well, then my margin's going to go down. It's going to make it harder for me to actually do the right thing.
I just have a quick question. Is, like, when you say fraud, is it like the people that producers that are certified, are they the problem, or is it like conventional?
That's an excellent question. So it's I mean, like all kinds of fraud in our society, it can happen in many places. So, for example, I don't think in the grain fraud examples that we had in the last decade or two in the United States, in some cases, yes, there were actually farmers who were misrepresenting grain and fraudulently presenting it as organic. Okay. In the grain markets, though, I think really where that's happening more are brokers and people who handle the grain. So, the farmer might sell the grain to an elevator, and then there might be a broker. She doesn't like fraud. Maybe she doesn't like grain. Fraud. I don't know. So you've got a broker, right? And that might be the point of fraud because, again, it's like, okay, well, I bought this conventionally produced wheat for, I don't know, let's call it $5 a bushel, and organic wheat, I can sell it for $10 a bushel. And so suddenly, I snap my magic fraud finger or wave my fraud wand, and boom, I have a higher margin, but it's sort of like passing off counterfeit currency or counterfeit products of any kind.
And so from the AgCom's perspective, I think that comes back to safety, right? So there is safety for the people who are actually practicing and enforcing their organic labels. And then it also provides that context for, I forgot what they call it in logistics, but where they are... where consumers themselves are able to, track where their foods are coming from, and then if they suspect that there are, fraudulent activities in the organic industry, they can investigate that and get that sorted out. So it's not only the communication that the certification process exists, but it exists so that the communication is safety for the producers, and then enforcement and repercussions. Yes. You want to talk into the microphone? All right.
Nala's really excited to get into the next part of our podcast discussion.
But I think, one thing I do want to say here is that, we don't, there isn't widespread fraud in the organic industry. But it's like any kind of enforcement. There is some, and the goal is always to just try to minimize it. And ultimately, dishonest people are everywhere, unfortunately, and that's just kind of the price of civilization, I guess, is in working with other people. Is every once in a while there's somebody who maybe isn't a good actor. But the important thing, I think, for the consumer, just as Dr. Mike was pointing out, is this is reinforcing our ability to entrust the label. The label's already had a lot of integrity, but this is really sort of allowing us to have even more. So it's a good thing. But it's not. I just didn't want people to be left with the feeling that, there's all kinds of fraud out there. And it's like, well, no, there's some. And we're always trying to reduce it. And that's what this is. But it's a really great, it's a good piece of legislation. There will definitely be some hiccups as it gets applied, as with all federal regulation. But ultimately on the back end, I think it's going to be a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your insight about all of the regulations that are set to go in place in March. It'll be super exciting to see where that takes the organic industry. Next up in organic trends is something that we have all been super excited to talk about in 225, and it is the organic dog food trend. So apparently there is a new wave of organic dog food hitting the market. Brands like the Farmer's Dog is a really good example of an organic pet food company, and the organic pet food market is expected to total $4 billion by 2032. So very exciting. People are buying organic dog food. Let's talk about that. It's said that switching to organic dog food is better for dogs' health, behavior, and appearance. However, it is a higher cost because it's organic, so that premium is higher, and it's more investment for producers. So lots of things going on here.
So they're insinuating that if you feed your dog organic dog food, there is behavior change associated with that? I'd love to see the research associated with that.
So the average price of organic dog food, a 4 pound bag or 4 pounds of regular dog food is around $14, whereas the average price of regular dog food, like conventional, is $14. And the price of organic dog food, the same 4 pound bag, is going to be $24. So it's
crap.
Around $10 more expensive for that 4 pound bag. So let's talk a little bit about why somebody might
60% markup.
65%. Let's talk about maybe why somebody might want to buy organic dog food. I mean, it's all up to the consumer. The dogs don't have a choice in what they buy.
Well, I could start the discussion.
Okay.
I mean, if you're investing in the organic lifestyle for the future benefits of the world and all the positive benefits of organic production provides for the environment, et cetera, I could see you paying a premium for your dog food because you're buying into the entire spectrum of the lifestyle.
Yeah,
right?
The marketing for organic is definitely something that people can consider a lifestyle, and if they want their lifestyle to be totally organic, of course they're going to feed their dog pet food that's organic if they have the resources to do so.
But what that price point is signaling to me as a consumer and someone who likes dogs and someone who's interested in organic agriculture, it's signaling to me that, like, okay, if I'm able to feed myself organic produce at a markup, that's fine. But then organic dog food becomes a luxury product because you heard the markup is like 60%, as Dr. Grisham calculated. It's signaling to me that, if you want to be really, really interested in organic agriculture, you're going to have to pay like a significant amount if you want to involve your dog or your extended pet family.
And some people might even go as far to say, like, I care so much about my dog, I'm feeding them organic pet food because back when back when dogs were wolves, they weren't eating anything that was conventionally processed. They were just hunting, and that is the lifestyle that I want my dog to have. We're going
Eating out
back
of
to
our
the
scrap
roots.
piles.
Yeah. So maybe that's what's going on in some consumers' heads, is helping dogs
Well-
return back to their roots in terms of the foods that they would eat.
I will say, I mean, I don't. I'd be really interested to see the ingredient lists of the organic versus conventional dog food. I mean, I know there are vegan dog foods out there too, and all vegetation, all plant-based. But, from an environmental standpoint and from a animal welfare standpoint, there's typically a lot of animal proteins in dog food. And so, two things that organic animal ag, I think, and one of our guests really spoke to this, does well, is there is a better environmental and welfare standard for those animals. So, if you are an animal lover, but you're okay with feeding animals to your primary animal love, your dog, you would know, I mean, you could be pretty sure that, all right, the cows and pigs and chickens and salmon or whatever that went into this, if they're aquaculture salmon, I guess, were treated in a better fashion than they would have been if they were in the conventional livestock marketplace. And then knowing then there's if it's cows, for instance, that there's going to be a higher grass content in their diet versus a grain content, that sort of changes the energy density of the food, the impact on the environment around where those animals is produced. So, that's an interesting concept. I would wonder though, I mean, I've known people who've had dogs with really weird digestive issues where they just had to feed them chicken and rice and things like that. And
Chipotle.
Yeah, right. And so they'd cook chicken and rice for their dogs, and that would be, I'd be really interested to do kind of, if I were considering organic dog food, I would want to probably compare and say, well, how much would it cost me just to buy organic chicken and rice?
Well, you're thinking about it from that perspective. I would like to investigate the communication or the marketing side of it,
Yeah,
and
I'm
determine whether or not people are attracted to the idea that their dog is going to be labeled as an organic dog, like an organic food eater, or are they really invested in the idea that organic production is helping the environment? I would be really interested to figure that out.
Cynical.
Yeah,
I suspect it would be kind of like why people buy Corvettes and Mercedes and BMWs and maybe Teslas and some of these very expensive automobiles. It's not necessarily
For the fad.
It's not, it's a status thing, right? It's
Right.
like, well, I feed my dog organically, so I'm
My dog's organic.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm pulling up the Farmer's Dog website right now, and they have a really good job with marketing their product on here. They have some statistics that say over 80% of dogs will get some form of dental disease in their lifetime, roughly the same percentage who eat dry food. And they
Yep.
have some other statistics about dogs that eat conventional dog food have a higher chance of being overweight, developing cancer, and then they come in and they're like, well, we're here to help.
Oh my God.
And their whole thing on here is human grade dog food. So their dog food is actually human grade. They talk about having USDA certified kitchens to prepare this dog food with, and it's very interesting in terms of marketing in here.
It sounds like
But-
for the people who genuinely like to eat dog food.
Yeah.
there's a
Let's
Yeah.
have some people taste this dog food
So
and
is
see
it a
what
wet-
it's all about.
is it all wet dog food then, or is
I'm
it-
not sure if it is. There is something I was trying to figure out what's in these dog foods, but
Yeah.
from what it looks like, you have to sign up and put in your email, and it will custom create a dog food blend for you based on
Wow.
your dog, what they like. It's very personalized.
So yeah,
and
this seems
it's very interesting. It's very new wave, I would say. Yeah,
Gucci dog food.
very bougie, if you will.
Gucci dog
I was
Listen,
gonna say, it seems like a
listen.
lot. Just
Yeah, it's a lot just for your dog,
interesting.
but if people want to pay for it, I say go for it. I mean,
Well, and again, I mean, just from impact of our food system on the environment, dog food's heavy in animal products, and I think that's one of the places where the organic standards are really great
Yeah,
from
and
a
you
welfare
have-
and environment standpoint.
And a lot of
So,
conventional dog foods, they have like meal, and that takes processing as
Yeah.
well. So I feel like if organic dog food companies like the Farmer's Dog remove that processing, then it might be
Yeah.
have long-term impacts on
Well,
the
and-
environment in a positive way.
I mean, there will be less, whether it's biologically significant or not, there will be less synthetic pesticide residues and all that as
Exactly.
well. But, I mean, given what I watch my dogs eat, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dog's eating some questionable things.
So my
Tin cans.
my reference to this is people who have the income, the disposable income to support that will, because I remember that Lady Gaga's dogs got kidnapped and she was willing to pay $500 grand, $1 million or whatever it was to get her pugs
Hear
back.
about that.
I wonder if she got them back.
Yeah, she did.
Oh,
I
did
saw
she
that
have to
very
pay?
recently. I'm pretty sure she had to pay something.
Well, hey,
and
that
if you're-
that
if
just
you're-
goes to show the
Wow.
extent people will
if
care
you're willing,
for their dogs.
yeah, if you're willing to pay that amount to get your dogs back, and I'm not suggesting that the value of a dog is less than anything what the consumer perceives it to be, right? But the idea is like, if someone has the disposable income and really cares about their dog, they probably will. But like Dr. Grisham said, I think it's a fad. I think it's the status associated with feeding
It's
your dog.
definitely a status thing.
And like, you walk into your group of like wealthy friends, or even on the college campus where, a lot of students have pets like Nala that was just here, they could have that status. Like, oh, I feed my dog only organic dog food.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, wow.
Speaking of
Fancy feast cat food, right?
Oh,
I mean,
I-
I grew up with those ads with the cat with the 16 silver piece setting, and
Oh
the
my
butler
goodness.
that brings it out on a tray, and I mean that was
Yeah.
definitely the marketing angle was my cat is better than your
Fancy,
cat.
yeah.
It's fancy. I have a fancy cat. So.
Speaking of students on campus, we have a man on the street interview lined
Oh,
up,
fantastic.
asking students if their dogs eat organic pet food. So we can pull that up in a little bit. I'm super excited to hear what students have to say.
So, do you use organic dog food?
I don't.
Okay, can I ask you why or why not?
Convenience and money.
Yeah,
So I just get it at Costco and just get what she likes.
I actually just adopted this dog, so no, I'm just using what they gave me to start with, yeah. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, do you think you'll be interested or do you think you might just go with the generic?
I don't know. I haven't, whatever she'll eat at this point. But yeah, I'd be open to organic dog food, sure.
Okay.
No.
No? Can I ask why not, if you guys have an opinion on it?
We feed Hills because it's recommended by our veterinarian,
Okay.
and he's just always had that since he was a puppy.
Okay.
She does get organic dog food, usually lamb-based or salmon-based.
Oh,
Because she
awesome.
otherwise gets sick. So
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
So wait, that last group said
She said she did feed her dog
Yeah.
not only organic pet food, but
lamb.
lamb and
Lamb-based,
salmon
yeah.
based.
What the heck?
I know we were shocked when we finally got one. I was like, thank
Yeah.
God.
The
Yeah.
dog eats
Wow.
better than I do. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Well, let's just quickly debrief what we just watched. We saw a really cute dog in a sweater. I did appreciate that.
Oh, man.
But it seemed like a lot of consumers did not feed their dogs organic pet food out of convenience or price, some of the things that we talked about earlier. But we did have one person say that they did feed their dog organic pet food. And I'm wondering why.
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask Amy, you were involved in this, correct? How
Yeah.
many people did you ask, just as like average?
Everyone we filmed. And then I think we asked like one more person, but they were in a hurry.
I suspect that if we did a little bit more, like go to the dog beaches or a casual
Oh, yeah.
park, and I think we would get a little bit more, especially for the area that San Luis Obispo is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I would be interested to see if anyone like did the dog food thing and got some information about it and then transitioned back or stayed with it because of
yeah.
whatever. And I didn't hear what that person with the dog in the sweater, what did they say about the...
They said they feed their dogs something because their vet recommended it. I don't think it was organic.
Oh, so
Okay.
so it's medically related. Oh, that's another
Yeah.
thing. We
Yeah.
haven't even discussed like if organic dog food would be better
Yeah.
for the system of the health system of the dog.
Well, I mean, I know. I mean that the dental claim is real. I mean, wet, and it's true for cats too. It's wetter foods are easier on their mouth and their
Oh.
teeth. I mean, just mechanical abrasion and wear down, right? But in terms of the other claims, I don't know. And I mean, in dogs, I mean, so cats actually have a much more refined diet than dogs. I'm a dog person, just to make that clear. I like cats too, though. But dogs really, I mean, they were wolves, and they evolved following us around and eating our garbage, and then we domesticated them. I mean, that's
And now
so-
they're eating better than us.
Yeah, now they're eating better than me, apparently. So, but hey, whatever.
How many times a week do I have lamb and salmon? Not 2 times a day.
Especially not from VG's. Sorry, shout out to VG's feeding us since
Shout out to
1975.
I think that wraps up our discussion on organic pet food. Definitely very whimsical and very fun to talk about. Oh, yeah.
So one other big happening in the organic movement, and this is more related to the production side of things, is the USDA has a program called the Transitioning to Organic Partnership Program, and our frequent guest and colleague in this podcast, California Certified Organic Farmers, is actually the regional manager of this program for the Western Southwestern region. And so this is a really exciting program. Basically, there's about $150 million nationwide being put into, I believe it's 5 different regions. There's a regional coordinator, CCOF is our regional coordinator, and they're providing direct support to farmers that want to transition to organics.
Oh,
And they're also providing workforce development. And so one of the things that the Grimm Center is going to be doing is we're working with CCOF to do workforce development. So some of the projects that we're starting up, well, one of them is a podcast series, I think.
Oh, that's
Oh,
us.
Yeah, that's us, right?
That's us.
And we're working on training students to be organic ambassadors on the AgCom side. But I don't know if you realize that was happening.
Like
but
us-
that's
like
one
us
of the
right
things that's
here.
happening, right? But also there's some new coursework that we're developing, and we're looking into developing a training package for certified crop advisors, where they can get a certification and training in organic production practices. Because one of the things that is really needed for us to continue to increase organic acreage are more well-educated producers and the folks that serve producers, like our certified crop advisors, pest control advisors, marketers,
Yeah.
et cetera. But I think we'll
I have a statistic here that
Yeah,
says
go
the
for it.
USDA is investing up to $30 million in this new organic transition initiative. And like you said, they were also offering mentoring advice,
Yep.
educational opportunities for
mentorship program.
producers, and direct assistance with organic market development. So
Yep.
also a very cool thing that's also happening.
Yeah.
Have you talked to any producers that may be interested in transitioning into this opportunity?
I think there are a lot of folks out there. This program is really targeting smaller and mid-scale and underserved communities for the transition funds. But I think at the larger scale of organics, the workforce development is what's really important. Again, I mean,
Yeah.
our larger agricultural system really relies on highly specialized and trained employees to help manage these large farming operations that produce the majority of the food that we eat. And so getting those folks trained and also training the next generation, like here at Cal Poly we do, is really critical if we're going to help across all scales increase organic acreage. But yeah, there's a lot of interest in it right now, and I think we'll have an interview here with Jesse Parr from CCOF to talk a little more about that.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting because on one of our previous podcast episodes, we did talk about the economic disparity between smaller producers that want to get into the organic industry and larger consolidation of organic firms and how they're doing, how they're comparing to smaller operations. So I think that this initiative is a really great way that producers can kind of break into the industry and really stake their claim.
Yeah, and it's with that, it's interesting in that the additional margin and sort of market that organic production that provides growers really allows medium scale growers to get by in a way that's harder to do in the conventional marketplace, because that consolidation of food system is everywhere. I mean, that's kind of the story of American agriculture for the last 100 years. I think, I'm listening to a book right now, and so I have some figures at the top of my head. But in 1810, 80% of the U.S. population was agrarian, and now under 1%.
Yep. So it's up to us.
Of course there's been consolidation. There's a tiny fraction of the population now engaged in this activity that at one time was the dominant activity for our entire civilization. The production of food, not necessarily organics.
Definitely. So I think that is all for our podcast today. Dr. Mike, would you like to close out with a little AgComms insight?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to cover everything in one. Organic certification provides that, safety net for consumers and producers and non-producers from the legal perspective, but also from that psychological perspective that you're getting exactly what you're paid for. I would be hoping that someone in this class is interested in figuring out that whether or not it's a fad or it's a investment into the future for that organic dog food part.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're just here to spread the information, get the information in, break it up, get it to the audience segments that need it, and hopefully we make an impact.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this episode was super informative. I definitely learned about a lot of new things that are happening in the organic sphere, a lot of new policies that are going into place, new incentives that will hopefully help producers excel in the organic industry. So this podcast episode was just super insightful. So I just wanted to say thank you, Amy, for joining the podcast today. Dr. Grisham, as always, your insight was very excellent. Thank you again. And Dr. Mike for giving your insight as well.
And Nala.
And also special shout out to Nala, who made a few appearances on the show today.
She was one of our topical subject experts.
Of course, yeah. She was the subject expert on the dog food.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is our podcast today, y'all. Nala's coming on.
We need a final puppy moment.
Nala, what do you have to say? Do you think that she's a fan of organic dog food?
Okay,
we'll never know. Alrighty, y'all. That is the end of our podcast today. Thank you, and this has been Live in 225.
Yeah.
Live in 225 is a production of the AGC 225 class at Cal Poly called Digital Communications and Agriculture. Program funding was provided by the California Certified Organic Farmers Foundation and the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. Our production team for this episode was Amy Walker, Gracie Bell, and Haley Evans. Our director for Season 1 was Bella Anushian. Our host was Natalie Victorine. The executive producer, creator, and co-editor for the show was Moses Mike. Matt Griesop was our co-producer. Our student panelist was Amy Walker. Our audio technician was Melissa Frago, who was also our managing editor. The video switching director was Cole Stevens. Our vocal talent was Jared Mandrell. Background music by LVY Music from Pixabay. Intro and outro music by Alex Grohl from Pixabay. Thanks for joining us.